I'm Dr. Joseph MD, Department of Sociology, University of Mumbai. This is the e-Pathshala project on religion and society. Now we go to Module 6, which is titled Religion or Way of Life, the ongoing debate on Hinduism. Now in this module, we look at an issue that has been talked about by many people in India. Is Hinduism a religion or a way of life? Now this has become very prominent with a Supreme Court judgment which described Hinduism as a way of life. And that is which triggered this argument. Now, from a sociological point of view, we look at this debate in great detail. First, we begin with understanding what is religion and how has religion been explained and understood in sociological scholarship. Now, this is something that we begin to critique because religion as a category in sociological scholarship has relied very, very strongly on the Western constructions of what religion is, or rather, Christian or Semitic understanding of religion. Now the question is, does this definition or explanation, and how much can this definition or explanation be connected to Hinduism? The kind of ways in which Hinduism as a composite or a loose category of different religious systems in India, to what extent can we apply the term religion to this? This is highly problematic. So we first look at this problematic. Then we come to a kind of an understanding about what being Hindu in India means. And thirdly, we come to this particular statement or the judgment of the Supreme Court that I mentioned earlier. We look at that judgment and the implications of that judgment for understanding of religion in India. And lastly, we look at, in contemporary times, the diversity of practices which is actually categorized as Hinduism and the implications that it has for this debate on religion or way of life, a kind of way in which we connect this to Hinduism. So this is exactly what we are looking at in this module. Now, the main kind of focal point of this particular module is, as I mentioned earlier, the entire category of religion. Religion as a category has evolved in a particular historical context. Can we use this category transhistorically or in other locations where the kind of things that we actually call religion have evolved very, very differently? Or do we have some other word? Or can we actually dispose of the category of religion and make it very, very specific to a particular historical cultural context and look for some other category for another context? Now, if that is the case, does way of life, does it actually apply or qualify for being such an alternative? Can way of life have that kind of a conceptual delimitation and a conceptual clarity as a useful tool for carrying on explanation and scholarly research? And this is the theoretical question that we are looking at in this module. Module 6, Religion or Way of Life, the ongoing debate in Hinduism. Now, this is a very interesting issue to understand, is Hinduism a religion or a way of life? Now this takes us to a question about what is religion. Religion was traditionally used to mean something like faith in God or faith in Jesus Christ and in the church and priesthood who serve him. Now Timothy Fitzgerald further writes that the study of religion is a disguised form of liberal ecumenical theology which further theologizes about the world's religions, partners with organizations for dialogue and building bridges between religions. Religion is not defined in terms of superhuman agents but also in terms of textual traditions. Religion in Fitzgerald's opinion is vaguely used to refer to rituals directed towards God, and that it becomes a habitual reflex than a deliberate and sustained policy. religion may also be used deliberately as a non-theological analytical category to make distinctions between religious and non-religious. Marx also accepts the view that religion represents human self-alienation. He declared in a famous phrase that religion has been the opium of the people. Religion defers happiness and rewards to the afterlife, teaching the resigned acceptance of existing conditions in this life. Attention is thus diverted from inequalities and injustices in this world by the promise of what is to come in the next. Religion should be studied as an ideological category, as an aspect of modern Western ideology, and as a basis of modern form of theology, with a specific location in history. And this is the idea of Fitzgerald. Number 1, Hinduism as a category of intellectual exploration emerges in the 19th century as a result of certain historical developments that call for its construction. According to T.N. Madan, Hinduism is not a religion, for it does not have a founder or a single foundational scripture or a set of fundamentals of beliefs and practices. Hinduism is characterized from an understanding of a monotheistic faiths like Christianity and Islam. Romila Thapar writes, it is not a single monolithic religion, but a diversity of sects which we today have put under a uniform name. Babasaheb Ambedkar points out that Hinduism was not a religion because it lacked the principles that define and legitimize a moral and social order. Instead, what was termed Hinduism was a set of prescriptions and prohibitions that framed along caste lines provided a vast variety and diversity of beliefs, rituals and practices followed by diverse groups all over the subcontinent. While it may be difficult to comprehend Hinduism as a monolithic religion, there is no denying the fact that the diverse existence of sects and cults clearly point to the existence of a rich religious diversity in the subcontinent. Now we go back to a judicial controversy in the year that happened in the year 1995. The Supreme Court's Hindutva judgment, the so-called Hindutva judgment delivered by Justice J.S. Verma on 11th December 1995 clearly brought out the problematic dimension of Hinduism as a religion or a way of life by putting forth the central argument that Hinduism cannot be confined to the narrow limits of religion. In contrast, it clearly pointed to how, within the subcontinent, Hinduism is a way of life. Assertions by the court also proves the shortcomings of the reform movement in the 19th century. That is, the efforts to develop a unified religious community called Hindu and Hinduism proved to be the contemporary work completely out of sync with the civilizational diversity of Indian society. As a result, the protagonists of the two-nation theory were compelled to impose a majoritarian ideology called Hindutva on the one hand, and suggesting that the links to the other project of unifying Hinduism that prevailed in the 19th century. Now the thing is to that extent the court judgment was correct in saying that Hinduism was not a religion, but it was equally incorrect in holding that Hindus did not have a religion, because factually we know that the vast amounts of sects that comprise the category of Hindus do have a system of beliefs and practices that correspond to the idea of religion. Finally, the idea that Hinduism is a way of life has been deeply misrepresented by the court to suggest that Hindutva is a way of life. Neither is Hinduism related to Hindutva, nor are all believers of the Hindu community subscribing to the idea of Hindutva. Religious phenomenon, as Fitzgerald observes, is often constitutive of the worldview and life world of a culture in various regions of the world. The life world, as elucidated by Schutz, gives us significant insights to understand how religion functions in the day-to-day life of a community. In the everyday life world, human beings take many things for granted in the province of reality. This enables them to communicate, work, and be understood by their fellow beings. Thus, humans also believe that others are endowed with similar consciousness, and therefore the outer world is the same, that it carries the same meaning to all. it is in this experiential sense, the everyday sense, it becomes important to understand that way the diversity of the diverse sects have come to exist and live with one another in what many scholars would identify as the syncretic consciousness that is embedded within the Indian population. Hinduism being defined and understood as a way of life is yet another significant shift which seems to have played a crucial role in its transmission. A social common sense was developed to institute amongst the people that Hinduism is superior to all other cultures, and Hinduism or Hindutva was made to appear as a way of life. New community of believers of Hinduism with an aim to mobilize against a dominant religion. Christianity described the religion as a way of life were elaborated by the concept of a state, concept of a seva. And thereby to come to a kind of a sort of conclusion about the discussion that we have had, the debate as to whether Hinduism is a religion or a way of life is one that will no doubt continue into the future, and with scholars from different vantage points. Those with a constructivist understanding of the phenomenon would no doubt emphasize the growth of the Hindus as a religion from 19th century up to now. 19th century onwards, those emphasizing the cultural way of the world would no doubt borrow on ideas of syncretism, coexistence and religious diversity to reveal the diverse and varied religiosity among the different sects and cults within the Indian society. Similarly, it is important to note that such a debate can also become politically intolerant when it begins to emphasize an exclusivist conception of the Hinduism and Hindutva. So in that sense, what we see in this is a debate between Hinduism as a religion, Hindutva as a religion on the one side, and a debate but is it a way of life on the other. And there are ideological positions, there are political, cultural implications, and these implications are played out in one way or the other in India today, and it is very relevant for us to raise these questions now. Now, on the one hand, religion as a matter of practices, rituals and beliefs, and on the other, ways of life is a very loose term which can mean anything, and therefore the all-inclusive character of Hinduism may render it as a way of life, but at the same time, when it has got its rules of exclusion and inclusion, and therefore, where do we draw the line from an all-inclusive, syncretic way of life and a religion or a system of religious belief which is tied to a social system which is very exclusionary. So it becomes difficult for us in that sense to take a very clear stand on the issue of the debate in one way or the other. Conclusion, Module 6. In this module we have looked at, or sociologically looked at, this particular debate that has been raging in India. Is Hinduism a religion or a way of life? So we have looked at it from this a sociological point of view, interrogating the category of religion and interrogating the category of way of life and finding out the various implications of it. Thank you.